Swayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Pancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Videvacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namah. Your Lordship, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, who are indefatigable time and enjoyer of all sacrifices. Although I am situated in an abode which will continue to exist for a time duration of true pararthas, although I am the leader of all other planets in the universe, and although I have undergone many, many years of penances for self-realization, I offer my respects unto you. O my Lord, by your own will, you appear in the various species of living entities among animals lower than human beings, as well as among the demigods, to perform your transcendental pastimes. You are not affected by material contamination. You have come just to fulfill the obligations of your own principles of religion, and therefore, O Supreme Personality, I offer my obeisances unto you for manifesting such different forms. My Lord, you accept the pleasure of sleeping in the water of devastation where there are violent waves, and you enjoy pleasure on the bed of snakes, showing the happiness of your sleep to intelligent persons. At that time, all the universal planets are stationed within your abdomen. So one thing that's prominent here is Brahma's absolute submission. And that submission is in the face of his being what other folks would consider a pretty big shot. He's the leader of all the living entities in the universe, this particular universe anyway. He's the leader of all the planets and planetary systems. He's the oldest, firstborn, last to go. So he has the longest life, Srila Prabhupada says. That's an indication of his importance. And still, he repeatedly offers his obeisances to Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in whatever form he may be contemplating him at a particular time. His whole business is serving the Lord. He understands that. And so here he's praying, and we're still kind of in the namaskar part. We haven't gotten to a petition yet. And then a little bit of his humility, at least in terms of his acknowledging his submission to the Lord, his subservience to the Lord. He does this repeatedly with the words namaha, the word namaha, over and over again. Sometimes a couple of times in one pada. Sometimes we do that in some of the standard pranam mantras that we chant, Namo Namaha. So that, I'm going to spend just a moment on that word namaha. We've done that before. And the Shastras break this word down into two elements, na and ma. So ma means me, and na is a negation. So namaha means this is not about me. This is all about you. I am all about you. So this kind of submission is quite prominent here in Brahma's prayers, although everybody else is pretty much in awe of him. If you were to encounter, one of us were to encounter Lord Brahma today, I think we might be quite astonished. Snazzy clothes, four heads with golden helmets and four arms and all kinds of jewelry and power. And when someone has that kind of power actually in them, and where is he then we notice, and where is he getting that power? in a couple of verses, probably Tuesday, he begins his petition. Very softly at first, and then in the next couple, 3 verses, it's a little more, don't let me lose sight of my position, even though I'm going to be doing some really amazing stuff. So he's the leader of all the planetary systems and everything, and he kind of triggers everything that happens afterwards. And he's submitting himself to the Lord so that he can be guided to do it in a way that won't leave him feeling full of himself. He won't get puffed up. So that's part of the petition part of these prayers. And so that's an important thing for us to remember when we recite prayers of submission, when we offer our obeisances, to the devotees. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripasindhobhya evacha patitam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Not me. It's all about you. I'm offering my respect to you. So that's a really important thing. Now another thing to note is that submission is a part of an understanding that he's working under the Lord's direction. He's also working in cooperation with the Lord's own desires. He says in the second of today's verses that he comes in so many different forms, including animals and forms of demigods. He says, you come to perform your transcendental pastimes. You come to fulfill the obligations of your own principles of religion. And Srila Prabhupada says in his purport that he comes mainly to satisfy his devotees. We've seen in the previous verses how the Lord finds himself submissive to the devotees by the strength of their bhakti. It's a whole thing, don't get me started. So he's creating, Brahma is cooperating with the Lord to create a system to accommodate those living entities who haven't been, I want to say infected. I'm not sure that has the best connotations, but who haven't been affected anyway. They haven't come under the control of his internal potency. We remain under the control of his external potency. So there needs to be a place to accommodate these living entities. Still, it's not that this is not like the deists' idea, that God creates and then he just kind of sits back and lets things take their own course. He interferes, he comes and interferes. Yada yada yadharmasya glani bhavati. Yada yada dharmasya glani bhavati bhavata. Abhyuktanam adharmasya tadatmamasya. So he comes repeatedly, comes on a schedule even, to mainly, Srila Prabhupada says in that purport, for the pleasure of his devotees, to help them have a situation in which they can progress in their spiritual lives. So this is a cooperative effort that Brahma is engaging in here. And so he's the leader of all the living entities. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says at the end of his commentary on text 18, he says, without pure bhakti, time cannot be conquered. So that verse talks about this really long stretch of time that the calculators on our phones can't deal with because we don't have enough zeros, we don't have enough places. So Brahma is hoping, among other things, to be able to conquer time. And he says, but I'm controlled by time. Even though I have a lot of time, I'm still controlled by time. And even now, I fear time. Without pure bhakti, time cannot be conquered. This is what I've understood today. Therefore, I should perform only pure bhakti. Thus, I offer my respects to the Lord of sacrifices, the Lord, with pure bhakti. And we know that if we offer something to Krishna with bhakti, he accepts it. Bhavagraha Janardana. He accepts the sentiments, the intentions of the devotees. And then we see a little progression here. In his commentary on 19, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, having offered respects to the Lord as the universal form and as the controller of time, now he offers respects to the Lord as the highest object of worship with the form of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. So he's getting more finely focused in his submission. And so we are, we're all Brahma's followers. Everybody, every one of us is in Brahma's Anugatya, in his part of his following. We all come after him. Anuga means after, just like same thing as Anuja. Anuja means born after. So Rama Anuja can either mean Lakshman, or it can be a name for Krishna, Rama Anuja, because he's born after Rama, Balaram. So Anuga is pretty much, it's essentially has the same meaning, following after, although not necessarily a verb, but following after. So Lord Brahma is creating this system, and the idea is that all the other demigods are supposed to cooperate with him, and the living entities are supposed to cooperate by offering sacrifice and following Krishna's social system, which includes sacrifice and so many things. And now, more recently, Lord Chaitanya has come to give something for the upliftment and, frankly, salvation of all living entities. He's come to give Krishna Bhakti, especially in the form of chanting the holy names. And so, with this cyclic succession coming from Krishna, and then especially the four main lineages coming from Lord Chaitanya, they're really all about spreading those teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And one of the innovations that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur introduced quite recently was kind of organized, systematic way of training. Of training Vaishnavas to engage in their worship, in their spiritual practices, their sadhana, but also for them to work together to share what they get from that with others in a more systematic way. So maybe thinking of that took me back. Excuse me, I had the page, but because I'm in airplane mode, all of a sudden it went away on me. Okay. There it is. So I was thinking of the 7 purposes for which Srila Prabhupada established his International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And I just thought I would just read those. Maybe finish up, see if I can finish on time today. So these 7 purposes are: 1, to systematically propagate spiritual knowledge to society at large and educate all people in the techniques of spiritual life, in order to check the imbalance of values in life and to achieve real unity and peace in the world. 2, to propagate a consciousness of Krishna as he is revealed in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagawatam. 3, to bring the members of the society together with each other and nearer to Krishna, and thus to develop the idea within the members and humanity at large that that each soul is part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 4, to teach and encourage the Sankirtan movement, congregational chanting of the holy name of God, and to reveal the teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. 5, to erect for the members and the society at large a holy place of transcendental pastimes, dedicated to the personality of Godhead. 6, to bring the members closer together for the purpose of teaching a simple and more natural way of life. And 7, with a view toward achieving the aforementioned purposes, to publish and distribute periodicals, magazines, books, and other writings. So especially those of us who have taken shelter, and we take shelter of the ashrams of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, we do so in a way, we intend to do so anyway, in a way that fosters the kind of cooperation that helps achieve these 7 purposes. And wherever we see these 7 purposes being served, we can consider that at least an aspect of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So sometimes we have to work together in ways that might not seem natural, in order that things might go smoothly. Especially those of us who've been here the last couple of years during this pandemic, when the temples had almost zero income because we haven't been able to operate the restaurant or really do much of anything else. We've understood that sometimes we may need to spend a little extra time or trouble in order to keep this project going. This is an important project. This is something we've discussed a number of times. This is a really important project. This is one of how many Prabhupada Tirthas? 9?
Well, there's only, I think, 7 where he lived and translated. He actually lived and translated. There's 9 that he's visited, for like Atlanta, for short periods of time. And he lived and translated.
And he spent a total of how many months living here?
I can't tell you.
At least several months.
Yes.
And that's just since we got this place in the fall of 1974.
Yes.
And he spent several weeks in 1969, and he spent a few weeks in 1972. This is a big deal, and this is part of it. And so, we all need to submit ourselves. This is the secret of spiritual life. I was thinking of this as well. This 34th verse of the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So Brahma is understanding all these things today. And how has he understood it? We've seen that previously. Those many years of penance and austerity. And that was his service to the Lord. The first thing he heard was the first instruction he got from, well, it must be his guru, because it wasn't anybody else, and he heard the voice, tapa, twice, emphasizing, for emphasis. Now you engage in austerity, and then things will be revealed to you. So the process for gaining spiritual knowledge is given in the 34th chapter, the 34th verse of the Bhagavad Gita's 4th chapter. Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshana. Try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquiring submissively and rendering service. Such self-realized souls can impart knowledge to us because they've seen the truth. So 3 elements there. Pranipat, submission, pariprashna, inquiry, and seva, service. So these 3 things together give us the understanding we need to do the service that we are given. And here we are together. This one thing, I've been speaking with a few devotees over the last few days, and one theme has come up over and over again from different devotees. There's something about this temple, and maybe especially, I mean, I've only been here 22 months, been back here 22 months now, almost 2 years. And most of that has been dealing with all the stuff that has come with this pandemic. Including the disagreement among ourselves about what things mean and what's real and all these things. But what's kept things going to the extent that we've been able to do it now is what I've heard about, especially over the last week and a half, this feeling of family. We're here because we want to be together to serve Lord Chaitanya and Srila Prabhupada's mission. So, we need to keep that, family feeling. Now, family, there are other things that come with family. Just ask anyone at Thanksgiving. But, you got your weird Uncle Charlie, whatever. But still, there's family, and it's what binds us together. One of my friends said this recently, discussing the relationships between gurus and disciples. He calls this Krishna's natural arrangement of affection and respect, natural reciprocation of affection and respect. But the thing is that also extends, and we've seen that, we've remarked on that as well. Yes, sir. I can't hear, I have a little
When is class going to be done?
He doesn't need the mic. People are telling me, you gotta use the mic. He doesn't need the mic. It's going to be done in about a minute or a minute and a half, Mother G. Thank you. Thank you for watching the clock for me. So anyway, we want to continue to deliberately do things in a way that keeps growing this family feeling among the devotees here. This is what I've been hearing, especially, I've heard it a lot the last couple of weeks, but I've heard it a lot, I think especially over the last year, maybe a little bit longer, but a lot over the last year, that family feeling. And I remember that's what we had when Kusha and I moved into the temple back in March of 1970, just a few days before Purnima. One of the things that struck me about living among, and of course there were only 8 of us then, so it was a little easier. And we hardly, most of us hardly knew each other. But there was a real family feeling. And I remember, was it after the Sunday feasts, we would go sit on the lawn in front of the temple and read the Bhagavatam or something together. And it was just so wonderful. I remember thinking, wow, this is like having family again. I hadn't been living with family for several years, maybe 4 years at that point. And I thought, oh, okay, this feels like family. So we want to keep that family feeling alive and extend that system, that Krishna's natural system of reciprocal affection and respect that we've noticed, that we've talked about several times over the last few months, going among the devotees. Should I end now, Marati Prabhu? I'm done. Unless I know that look. You are so slow. What is your problem? You don't get it? Any quick questions or comments? Adi Deva, please.
Verse 19, it says, you appear among animals more than the human beings. So
I knew he was going to ask this.
the question is, I understand appearing in the human beings, but why, for what purpose?
I should not have taken questions because I knew you were going to ask this. And I don't have any off the top of my
I do
head.
have one.
Maybe Mohini,
You.
Mohini kind of appeared sort of among the Devatas.
White red.
Water is in conjunction with the human beings because Matsya is for helping the
Yeah,
even Kurma.
yeah, and they're all about helping You know, they're all about making things better for the human beings, especially those human beings who've taken to bhakti. But off the top of my head, when I read it, I thought, oh, this is an Adi Deva question. and it didn't occur to me, an hour and a half ago, to sit down and get my little gray cells pumping so that I could come up with any more, maybe Parashuram, sort of.
Matsya,
Yeah, Matsya,
Viraha,
Raha, Kurma.
Nishina.
Nrsinga, yeah. So, sort of roughly among Devata kind of people. Higher than human, superior to human. So we have those. So like specific, like people that we would call demigods, I can't think of many, but of course, Brahma is also seen as sometimes like a Shakti Vaishavatara. Sometimes he is a Shakti Vaishavatara. Sometimes the Lord himself takes Brahma's place. Does that help at all? Does that get me off the hook? Does it get us off from a Ruchi? So, thank you so much, Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam. Jai.